So, hello, members of the Commentators Network. Hope you're doing well. We've got another really interesting interview for you today with Harriet Williamson, who is a mental health activist and writer. She writes for a number of different papers, and I kind of want to ask you how you balance all of that. But we're here today to talk about mental health. So, this is Mental Health Awareness Week, and the theme is kindness. So Harriet, as an activist, as a campaigner, as a writer, why do you think kindness is important as the theme this year?
I think kindness is really important as a theme because kindness and understanding and compassion are really shows of strength. And I think that they make the world a healthier and better place to live in. Without kindness, we can't hope to understand other people who go through mental health struggles, and we can't care for ourselves without kindness. So kindness is important for both facing outwards to others and facing inwards towards ourselves. I think that there is a lot of unkindness around at the moment. Headlines in the media that demonise marginalised people, unpleasant comments on social media. The whole idea of kindness, I think, is just so important for ensuring that everybody gets an equal chunk of this world and is able to enjoy their lives.
Yeah. Well, that's all well put. I love what you said about, inward looking and outward looking. I kind of wanted to ask a bit about, because you made a tweet recently talking about living with a mental health disorder. I hope it's okay talking about that.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of find out, I guess, one, how, the lockdowns affected that, and you being at home, you being in quarantine, but also when you made the tweet, what kind of responses did you get, and how did you kind of find and navigate that?
So I was struggling quite a lot with intrusive thoughts, which have been quite strong during lockdown, and I was feeling at quite a low ebb, so I tweeted about how I was feeling, and I was just overwhelmed with this outpouring of kindness and support, which I'd never expected. I gained about 10,000 followers.
Oh gosh. Really?
I know. And I had hundreds upon hundreds of supportive messages, which I couldn't get to reply to them all, unfortunately. But I made sure I thanked people publicly for how they had responded to my tweet, because it was so unexpected and so kind. And I appreciate that so much. I think that's one of the really good parts of social media that doesn't often get talked about enough. And I think that under lockdown, a lot of people are suffering. This is not unique to me. This is not just my issue. And I think that by voicing that, I may have given a voice to other people who maybe couldn't say how they were feeling, because they might have felt ashamed, or they might have felt too alone, or they might have been mindful of the stigma that does still follow having mental health problems and being quite open about them.
That's so interesting what happened there, because what's often said of social media is it's kind of a place you stay away from if you have mental health issues, or in fact, it's often credited for exacerbating issues people have. So what would you put that down to? I mean, you said it was shocking, I can imagine it, but what would you put it down to that somehow you kind of buck the trend a bit and you experience something that a lot of people haven't often said they've experienced?
I would say that I think people were just really ready to hear it under lockdown, because it is so difficult for people. According to the charity Rethink Mental Illness, it's around 80% of people with pre-existing mental health conditions who say that their symptoms have actually worsened under the coronavirus lockdown conditions. And so this is a very common experience. And I think that, it gave people a bit of a voice, my tweet.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, it was really a joy to see. As someone who covers politics, it's often unkind, the kind of commentary you see. So to see people willing to hear and support you was absolutely amazing. Like I read the tweets back, and it was a joy to just see some hope and some positivity amidst lots of negativity.
Yes, it was amazing.
There's a lag. Sorry, were you going to say something?
I just wanted to say, yes, it was utterly amazing. And I couldn't believe it. I woke up in the morning and I was just totally overwhelmed.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was so positive. I guess onto something else, which we've often discussed in the Common Sense Network, and that is, how do we replicate what you experienced essentially? And do you think that mental health and mental health disorders, do you think they're given an equal footing? And should they be given an equal footing, especially when you compare, how we're reporting on health issues, especially during lockdown? What do you think will happen with how we report mental health issues and things of that nature?
I think I'm a very big believer in parity of esteem, which means giving mental and physical health conditions an equal footing. Yeah. I think that mental health problems are equally as important. We all have mental health, even if we don't have mental health problems. And we all need to make sure that our mental health is looked after and our mental well-being is strong. In terms of how it's been reported on, there's been very little coverage of mental health since the coronavirus crisis started, which I find very strange because I think we're heading for a very serious explosion in mental health conditions. If you think about things like the financial worries that are going on because of lockdown conditions, which of course exacerbate mental ill health, the loneliness, the disruption to people's daily routines, people not being able to get their regular treatments, and did I say loneliness? Loneliness, very important, yeah. And the idea that we don't know when this is going to potentially end. I mean, there has been an exit strategy now outlined by the government, but it is not guaranteed. Apparently, it depends on the science, which of course is a good thing. But I really do believe that we are heading for something big in terms of people's mental health getting quite bad because of this. I'm sorry if I haven't put that quite well, and there's also the grief that people are experiencing. My auntie died recently, and we had to watch her funeral yesterday via webcast, which was a very lonely and disconnected experience. People are not able to have wakes, see their families at funerals. They're not able to grieve in the way that they would normally do. All of that will have an impact on mental health.
Yeah, I'm very sorry to hear about your auntie, of course. I hope you and your family are doing well. I mean, you speak there about the lasting impact, and the United Nations recently came out and said that they think there's a mental health crisis looming. And I guess the difficulty is, we've never been here, at least in our lived, in our lifetime, we've never been in this place before. It's unprecedented. Do you think the government's doing enough to actually prepare for this looming mental health crisis, as the United Nations put it? You just said there as well, you think there are some pressures are still yet to come, and an explosion, as you called it. I mean, are you hopeful about how the government will deal with that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, from what we've seen over the last nearly 10 years of Conservative rule, I am not hopeful at all that they're going to deal with this in the right way. Under the Conservative government, we've seen a real-time reduction in spending on mental health services. So as the years have gone on, mental health has not been prioritised as they said it would. There has been no parity between the funding. Mental health makes up, I think it's 23% of all care under the NHS, yeah. But it's only given 11% of the funding. So that's not parity. That hasn't happened. And the lack of talking, recognition from the government about this crisis that the United Nations says is coming, and I believe also is coming, really shows, I think, that they're not thinking about it. They're not prepared. Obviously, I don't know what goes on behind closed doors in COBRA meetings and such like, but when Boris Johnson was asked a couple of weeks ago at the Daily Briefing about a potential spike in suicide rates, his response was that they would be giving more money to mental health charities. Now, charities are amazing and they do incredible work, but I don't think we should rely on charities to do the work of the NHS. Charities are fantastic, and organisations like Mind and the Samaritans I have a huge amount of admiration for, but we pay taxes to go into a national health service which should be there to help, treat, service everybody who needs it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, what as you said, I guess we should be hopeful, but at the same time, if we take a look at what we've seen so far, there might be cause to be doubtful. But I guess one thing I also want to kind of get your thoughts on is, so whilst we wait for the government to act, you know, what can we be doing as kind of citizens, especially during this pandemic, to kind of look after each other, but also to alleviate some of the pressures people may be feeling? I mean, we've seen lots of different groups emerge, you know, people put in money together to help out materially in their local communities. But I guess seen as the theme this year is kindness, my thought is, you know, what do you think we can do to be kinder to each other? How can we be kinder to each other? And perhaps what might be quite interesting to hear as well is, you know, what's the kindest act you've received this lockdown season that's really kind of made you smile?
Oh, that's a lovely question. So I think to be kinder to one another, I think that we need to, if we feel comfortable doing so, and if we feel able to check in with our friends and family during the pandemic, make sure you give someone a call, a text, a WhatsApp, and just find out how they're doing. Even asking that question can be so valuable and important to somebody who feels like they're on their own and they're struggling. It's that knowing that somebody is out there who cares about you. In terms of social media use, if you've got something that's unpleasant to say and you wouldn't say it to somebody's face, don't put it online. Just don't do that. Yeah. I'm sort of helping lift the spirits of friends and family during the pandemic, and a couple of strangers as well, by making handmade cards, watercolours, that sort of thing, and just sending them out free of charge. And apparently that's really cheered a couple of people up, which is nice. My kindest act was I got a lovely card back with a hand-done cross-stitch in it that showed a painting, because I do a bit of painting, and a cat, and I just loved that. It was so personal, it was so lovely, and it was from a friend from university, and it made me feel sort of seen and important and wanted, and it cheered me up for my whole week. Yeah, just that little act of kindness.
That's lovely to hear. I see the cat is making an appearance as well. He kind of perked up when you said something there. Well, what's next for you then? I mean, so you've had lots of interest online. You've had this, I mean, for all intents and purposes, viral tweet. You know, lots of new people are looking at your work. Well, what's next for you?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm doing a couple of things for Mental Health Awareness Week, a couple of guest posts. I'm doing this podcast. I've got another podcast coming out about my other great topic, which is politics, which I love to talk about. I am just trying to make sure I use my platform for what I think is important, so that it reflects my values of left-wing politics, kindness, compassion to people with mental health problems, and raising awareness about different mental health issues. Because I think there's a real problem still in the fact that some conditions like depression and anxiety are seen as palatable, while others like borderline personality disorder and psychosis, schizophrenia, are still highly, highly stigmatized.
Yeah.
My other bit of news is that I'm taking over the footballer Neville Southall's Twitter in a couple of weeks to do a mental health awareness bit. So I'm quite excited about that.
Very cool. Oh gosh, we'll be sure to look out for that. I'm sure if you send us the details, we can publicize that as well.
That would be amazing.
That was amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing your platform with us and for helping all our viewers kind of navigate this season. Kindness is the theme, and I think you've been very kind in taking part in this. And we wish you all the best in the future. And thank you so much.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you for having me on. This has been a great experience. Thank you, Mike.
Super.